Hi everyone, I'm Dane Campbell. Welcome back to Change with Dane. I'm recording this on Thursday, August 7th, 2025. The title of this episode is going to be 4 Tools to Help with Stress. Now, the reason that I've been thinking about stress lately is because whenever we go through any kind of change in life, it creates stress. And if you want to kind of get an elementary definition of what stress is, it's just the pressure on our coping abilities and the way that we cope and how circumstances in our lives, thoughts in our lives, people in our lives maybe push against the norm, and then that creates a feeling within us of, whether we're at peace or maybe stressed. Stress is a necessary and useful tool in our lives. If nobody ever went through any stress, there would be no change. There would be no reason to make things different or to change ourselves or our circumstances. So some stress is good because it's motivating and it creates the energy to do what we need to do to make things better or to change things. But too much change or too much stress over too long of a time can have a very negative impact upon us physically, emotionally, and oftentimes spiritually. So it's good if we can all find ways that are healthy to manage stress, because we have to admit that we're all going to go through it. Now, I've encouraged you all and we've focused on changing our thoughts and some of the things that we tell ourselves that have a tendency to not be healthy and to not bring us peace or success in life. So now I want to have a bit of a conversation with you about some very specific things that you can do to help when you're going through stress or you're feeling stress or you're trying to make some of those changes and maybe they're creating a little bit of internal turmoil or emotion that you didn't expect. Because anytime we try to change, remember, even if it's the very best thing we could do for ourselves, it's going to create some emotion. It's going to create a little bit of turmoil, and it's going to require us to kind of think through how we get through those kind of difficult and negative emotions. So one of the first things that I think we can do as we're going through these processes of change, whether that's change we choose to do ourselves or things that come at us externally, is we can find some maybe more positive comments to tell ourselves than perhaps we would have done normally. So let me give you a very specific example. Sometimes when people feel sad or down or maybe even a little bit depressed, there may be a tendency, because that feeling is not good and it doesn't feel good, there may be a tendency to say, I can't handle this. This is never going to go away. I'm always sad. How am I going to get through this? So one of the things that you might want to do if you're going through that kind of a situation is just change the internal thoughts or the internal language a little bit. And maybe you could say to yourself something along the lines of, emotions are always temporary. And even though this is very hard right now and I don't like to feel sad, I know that this is going to change in the future. I'm not going to feel sad forever. I'm not suggesting that we do the Norman Vincent Peale power of positive thinking. What I am suggesting to you is that you can find more positive comments that will allow you to feel that negative emotion less intensely and for over a shorter period of time. And so if you can just redo some of the thoughts that are going on in your mind just a tiny bit, from this is the most horrible emotion I've ever felt, or this is the worst I've ever felt, to this feeling is very difficult and I'm going to find a way to work through this. It can be a way to give you strength through that difficult time, through that difficult emotion, through that difficult line of thinking. And somebody's positive thought that works for them isn't going to work for somebody else, right? So these are certain things that you're going to have to try on and just, kind of brainstorm and write down a bunch of these and then give them a try and see if they work for you. So that's the first thing you can try to do, is to find some positive comments and some positive thoughts that you can tell yourself when you're going through stress or difficult times. One of the other things that I've taught most of my clients to do over the course of therapy is I've taught them the skill of diaphragmatic breathing. There's lots of ways to learn this. I know that there are many apps that try to help you learn how to breathe a little more effectively, so that your breathing becomes a bit of a meditation. And the reason that I think this is such a powerful tool is it is practice in pulling your thoughts away from the distressing or the negative thing that you're currently thinking about. So if you are highly agitated and thinking about a confrontation that you had with somebody, or an upcoming confrontation that you're going to have with someone, if you have the ability to slow the process down and just start breathing and thinking about those cleansing breaths coming in and that warm air going out, and if you can just do this for a few minutes, it takes your mind away from that cyclical churn that sort of gets people worked up and keeps people worked up. And you can really have a big impact on how angry or how anxious or how depressed you might be feeling. So this is a skill that I ask people to learn and to practice at least 5 minutes a day. And I've been doing it for almost 3 decades. One of the very first skills I ever learned as a therapist. And I have found that I can be in very intense situations and just be taking a few of those nice breaths without anybody else in the situation even knowing that I'm doing it. And it sort of grounds me. It helps me to find the right thought, the right focus, or the right way to move forward in a situation. And I cannot tell you how many times I've used this skill to kind of move myself out of a rather difficult or sticky situation. Even if you're not in those kinds of situations, doing this and practicing this for 5 minutes a day can really bring a lot of peace and can oftentimes help people find some clarity to circumstances or situations that they might be going through. One of the next skill that I want to talk about is just talking. You don't have to have a therapist, but if you have a trusted friend, a family member, a confidant, a peer that you can just express some stuff to, sometimes it's very helpful in reducing stress and in gaining some greater clarity. You would not be surprised, or maybe you would, how many people suffer in silence and they don't have those, or they choose not to share things with those important people in their lives because they want to protect them, or the problem may seem too big, or there may be shame around that issue. But if you're able to allow some of those reasons that we often tell ourselves that we shouldn't contact others or shouldn't talk to others, if you can reduce that and reach out, quite often just expressing those things can help bring peace, a little bit of comfort into your life. It may make the situation not seem quite so big or quite so out of your grasp to find a solution or find control to. And oftentimes you will find that the people that you trust and care about want to help you, and they want to listen, and they can help you reduce some of those stressful situations in your life. So talking is and can be extremely important. And if it's with your best bud over a beer at the end of the week, do that. If it's with your good friend that you haven't chatted with for a couple of years, call them up, have a discussion. If it's with a formal therapist or coach, go to it, say what you got to say, but use the powerful tool of releasing whatever's going on in you through talking. And you might find that that is helpful in dealing with high stress situations. The last thing is similar. The last tool I'm going to share with you is similar to talking. Some people don't do this very well because they don't like to write. But I think it's a very, very powerful tool to write things down and to bring them outside of yourself. I have worked with many, many people who have issues with sleeping. And a lot of times, one of the things that's described to me is people will put their head down on the pillow and then suddenly things will start going on in their head. They'll replay conversations or situations or things that happened today, yesterday, a year ago, 10 years ago. And they get in this cyclical mood of thinking about that situation, how they should have reacted, what they should have said, all of those types of things. And sometimes it's hard to allow those concerns and those situations to leave your mind so that you can calm yourself and your body and mind can slow down and sleep. So what I've suggested to people is that they keep maybe a journal or a worry journal at the side of their bed, a piece of paper where they can just jot down what those thoughts are that keep racing through their mind so that it comes from out of here into the front of you, and you can then examine and see, and you don't have to keep, your mind doesn't have to keep, going over and over and over and over that situation and making it impossible for you to calm down enough to sleep. Like I say, some people do not like to write. Some people have changed this from writing to drawing, but it can be any kind of a creative outlet that just allows some of that pent up and built up emotion that comes with stress and the stress of change, to pull it outside of yourself and to allow it to be a little bit of distance between what's going on inside of you, inside of your soul, and that can kind of keep you churned up. So one of the reasons I want to talk about these 4 things: positive comments to yourself, breathing, talking, and writing. There's for 1,000 different people, there's 1,000 different ways to deal with stress. These are just 4 things that I've seen clients implement in their life that have helped them. So I wanted to share these with you because as we go into the next realm of change that I'm going to talk with you about, I'm going to be talking about changing behaviors. And there are reasons why we do things. Many of those things we do because of habit, but those habits were formed for a reason. And so sometimes changing behaviors can make us feel a little off kilter and can make us feel maybe a little out of control, because a lot of times we do things and we do behaviors to try to control our environment, can try to control our thoughts and our emotions. And so sometimes when we start to change behaviors, it can leave us feeling a little out of kilter and a little stressed. So I wanted to share with you right off the bat these 4 behaviors: positive comments, breathing, talking, writing, communicating. I wanted to share those with you so that you can start to think about implementing some of these positive behaviors and how to reduce stress if you are going to continue the process of change, and how that will sometimes, bring up a little bit of stuff that you will need some help to calm yourself with. So I appreciate you watching today. I hope you're seeing some success in your efforts to change. If you're not, and you have specific questions or things that are tripping you up or getting in the way, you can certainly leave a comment for me. I'll talk about it on the video, or I'll leave a comment for you if I have some suggestions. But the main thing is to keep giving yourself compassion, keep trying. And these changes can happen in your life for good. And I want you to know that that is a very powerful tool in our day-to-day life. So again, thank you for watching. I look forward to talking with you again next week, and take care.